My name is Claire Hadley. I'm 34. On my wedding day, I counted 4 empty chairs: my mother's, my father's, my sister Brooke's, my best friend Steph's. All 40 minutes away at Brooke's engagement party, which my mother had scheduled for the exact same afternoon. I lifted the cake knife, Daniel's hand warm over mine, and my phone buzzed. My mother's text, "We need to talk now." Then the calls started. 36 of them by the time the cake was cut. I didn't answer one. What none of them knew was that the truth was already sitting in a county filing cabinet, signed 3 years earlier, waiting. I'm a hospice nurse. I sit with people in the last rooms of their lives, and I've learned families show you the truth at the edges. In mine, I was the edge nobody looked at, the one called for midnight emergencies, tangled prescriptions, unopened tax notices. Brooke was the one called to celebrate. I'd stopped expecting that to change. So when I planned my wedding, I kept the list small, mailed my parents a real invitation with a ribbon, drove it out myself. I told myself that was love. It was a test, and some part of me already knew the answer. When I dropped it off, my mother was on the porch with her event binder, more interested in how Tyler's family wanted something proper for Brooke than in the envelope in her hands. My father, 3 years out from the stroke that took the right side of his body, and it seemed, his willingness to meet my eyes, just nodded at the railing. I watched my mother set my invitation down without writing the date anywhere. She wrote everything in that binder. She didn't write this. I should explain the 3 years before that porch. My father's stroke hit in March. While he was still in the hospital, a letter came from the bank. The farm was 90 days behind, foreclosure stamped in bold like it was proud of itself. My parents had been drowning quietly for 2 years and told no one. $84,000 to bring it current. I had exactly $84,000, built one double shift at a time, meant to be my someday house. I sat in the hospital parking garage and decided in 4 minutes to save the farm my grandfather built by hand. But I didn't just hand over the money. Even then, some careful part of me knew that in my family a gift gets remembered the way water remembers a stone. It doesn't. So I did it properly, through a lawyer, recorded, and told no one. I filed the paperwork away and didn't open that box again for 3 years. Then came Brooke's engagement, announced to me by phone while I stood in a hospital supply closet. I congratulated her and meant it. Then my mother said the sentence I'd carry for months. "You'll understand, Claire, a wedding's just a party. Family is about who you really show up for." She wanted me to hear the ranking. I'd heard it my whole life, just never that clean. Steph backed out next, dressed up as a scheduling conflict until I pried out the truth. My mother had personally recruited her to Brooke's party. Then a cousin texted me, unprompted, a screenshot of Brooke's engagement invitation, same date as my wedding, an hour before my ceremony. When I called my mother, she tried, we couldn't make the calendars work, then landed on the real reason. We can't split the family 2 ways in one weekend. People have to choose. As if I'd built the fork in the road, not her. That night Daniel found me at the kitchen table, rearranging a seating chart like I could conjure people out of cardstock. He asked if I wanted to move the date. I'd thought about it, folding myself smaller the way I always had. Instead, I felt something close to relief. "If they want to come, they'll come," I said. We left the 4 chairs on the chart, empty on purpose. Let them say it. The night before the wedding, unable to sleep, I finally opened the banker's box I dragged through 3 apartments without touching. On top, a manila envelope in my own handwriting. Farm, important asterisk. Inside, the promissory note, the recorded lien, and underneath, a letter from my grandfather, written the year before he died. I read one line and stopped breathing. I didn't read further that night. I just held it against my chest in the dark, understanding that whatever happened tomorrow, the real story was sitting in my lap. The wedding itself was gold and cool, string lights and hay bales in a restored barn. The 4 empty chairs hurt exactly as much as I expected during the vows. Then Daniel said my name, and I came back, and the room full of nurses who traded shifts to be there. The one aunt who actually showed up reminded me that empty chairs only make the full ones impossible to ignore. At the cake, my phone started buzzing against the table. I turned the ringer off and kissed my husband. 36 missed calls could wait until the dancing was done. I listened to the voicemails at midnight, still in half my makeup. My mother, bright at first, then thinner with every message, until her voice had the sound I only ever hear in hospital hallways, a plan coming apart in someone's hands. Brooke, furious and wet, I don't know what you did, but you ruined everything. I sat there in my dress feeling worry and curiosity in equal measure. Because I already had a fairly good guess what had happened. Daniel said, "You're not calling back tonight." I wasn't. Tonight I was dancing with my husband. The emergency would still be there Monday. I pieced together the rest from my cousin's texts and a strange, rambling voicemail my father left later. At the party, under string lights, with Tyler's parents in their good clothes, my mother stood up and gave a speech about legacy and announced that she and my father were gifting Brooke and Tyler the farmhouse, free and clear, as a wedding present. The crowd applauded. Brooke cried the pretty kind of crying. Then Tyler's father, a careful man who reads things before he signs them, asked simply whether the property was actually free and clear. My mother, beaming, said of course it was. It wasn't. There was a lien on that property, recorded in the county courthouse 3 years earlier, and the name on it wasn't the bank's. It was mine, the daughter who wasn't at the party, the daughter whose wedding they'd all skipped to be there. It took someone with a phone about 90 seconds to find it. Sunday morning, I finally opened my grandfather's letter all the way. He'd written it the year before he died, naming what he wanted the farm to become and who he trusted to protect it, and it wasn't a vague sentiment. He'd left instructions, the kind a careful lawyer turns into language with teeth, and 3 years earlier, without knowing it, I'd built exactly the legal foothold his letter had hoped someone would. The lien wasn't just a debt repaid. It was leverage my grandfather had quietly hoped one of us would have the sense to hold onto. I let the family stew through Sunday. Monday morning, I called my mother back not because of the 36 calls, but on my own time. I didn't yell. I didn't need to. I told her exactly what she already knew by then. Nothing happens to that farm, no transfer, no gift, no deed, without my signature. Because my signature was the one thing standing between her and foreclosure 3 years ago, and she'd never once thought to ask what that meant for the future. She tried, "You should have told us." I told her I'd told the county, the bank, and a lawyer, which was more honesty than the supply closet ever got from her. We met at the farmhouse that week. My parents, Brooke, Tyler's parents still politely horrified in the corner. I laid the paperwork on the same table where the binder used to sit. I didn't ask for the farm. I never wanted it. What I asked for was simple. An acknowledgement, in front of everyone who'd skipped my wedding to celebrate a gift they didn't actually own. Of what I'd actually done for this family, while I was busy being the edge nobody looked at. My mother, for the first time in my life, didn't have a binder big enough to talk her way around it. I'm not going to pretend it fixed everything. My mother and I are civil now, careful in the way people are after a debt has been named out loud. Brooke and I are slower to rebuild, but we're trying. Steph and I aren't what we were, and I've made peace with that. What changed is smaller and bigger than any of it. I stopped being the daughter who answers 36 calls before the cake is even cut. I let it ring. The farm didn't burn down. My father didn't die. And the only signature that mattered on that land was finally, after 3 years of carrying it alone, allowed to mean something out loud.